The story opens up with a girl greeting our protagonist, Jin Jong. Without showing any shred of emotion, he simply said, "Hey." Our protagonist is the Ayanokoji of manhwas, but instead of treating people like tools, he treats women like stones. This is his unchanging, steadfast belief. You may wonder what caused him to behave this way. Flashing back to elementary school, the kid had already racked up about 20 rejections. Bro thought that the worst a woman would say is no, but he was so wrong. Bro got utterly humiliated each time in different ways. As a young boy, he was deeply scarred. Having lost all his confidence, the boy locked himself in his white room and invented an imaginary friend to ask for advice. His name was Jason. This voice in his head became the kid's ultimate guru, who would help him escape the Matrix. In a stroke of genius, this Jason guy told him to see all the girls in the world as nothing more than simple rocks. Repeating this idea like a broken record, the kid trained his own mind non-stop for years. By the time he hit his first year of middle school, all women really did start looking like stone to him. Back in the present, the woman tries to continue the conversation. With a smile, she says, "Hey, do you have some time after school today? I was hoping you could help me study." But our protagonist is focused on his golden rule of never thinking a girl is hitting on him just because she smiles. Jason's second advice was not to get your hopes up, if you don't want to get hurt. The kid keeps his cool composure and rejects her saying, "Sorry, I'm a bit busy today." By the way, our boy had been hitting the gym, training his mind to not get distracted by women. Anyway, as he walks down the hallway, many girls greet him, and he casually waves back, while inwardly saying, "Ever since I started seeing women as stones, dealing with girls has become much easier. It's only natural. You can interact with a stone without having to feel any emotions." He then asks his friend, isn't he right about it? And the imaginary gym bro agrees. However, he's worried that our protagonist will end up never being able to date at this rate. But our protagonist reminds him that they both gave up on that romance life ages ago. Jason admits it, and Jin Yong further says, "Rather than hearing that I'm pathetic or not good enough, I'm more comfortable the way things are now. It's been nearly 5 years since I started seeing women as stones. I don't even think about dating anymore." Just then, while Jason is saying that what matters is being comfortable about it, a girl walks by and picks up a phone from the ground and calls out to our boy, grabbing his attention. She holds up the phone to him, telling him he dropped his device. She adjusts her hair and asks in a sweet voice if it was his. The protagonist just stares for a moment. Then he receives a massive shock. Staring at the girl's beautiful face, he panics, wondering why on earth she doesn't look like a stone. Realizing how much trouble he's in, our MC internally freaks out at seeing a girl's actual face after so long. Trying to keep his cool by any means necessary, he desperately looks for a way out to avoid embarrassing himself. Finding the kid's bizarre silence weird, the girl asks why he doesn't just answer her. Breaking out in a cold sweat and stuttering, our boy tries to justify his brain malfunction, thinking he's just out of practice. Completely losing his filter, he ends up blurting out that the girl is really pretty. Left totally speechless, the girl lets out a confused mumble at the out-of-the-blue compliment. Thanking him a bit awkwardly, she tries to process what just happened, and Jin Yong quickly snatched his phone and made his escape while thanking for picking it up and apologizing. Watching the weirdo disappear from sight, the girl wonders what that was all about. Running like a madman, the boy calls himself an idiot for opening his big mouth. Beating himself up for calling a total stranger beautiful to her face, he can't believe his own screw-up. Imagining the worst-case scenario, he starts to panic, thinking the gossip is going to spread through the entire school. Later, the scene shifts to his apartment. Popping up in the room again, the mental gym bro confesses that he thought the kid's move was actually pretty smooth. Lying on his bedroom floor, the boy hears Jason tell him not to be so discouraged. Pondering the mystery, the protagonist tries to understand why only that girl managed to get past his stone filter. Jason admits that there's no way to know for sure, so he asks what he's planning to do now. If he left it like this, there's a chance weird rumors will spread. Having horrible flashbacks to elementary school, he remembers a little brat saying his crush on her was disgustingly creepy. Jason comments that after training so hard, still something like this happened. The protagonist then gets a mental breakdown, swearing his life is ruined forever. However, Jason comes in clutch and punched him, telling him not to let his mental state crumble, and instead think of a solution. They don't know why she doesn't look like a stone, but he can just avoid running into her. Since he's in different classes, if he hides well, then the chances of meeting are slim. Jin Yong realizes that it's true. If he just don't run into her, he won't have to deal with being flustered. The scene then shifted to the next day at school. Our boy truly believed that the problem is solved. But coming face to face with the girl in question first thing in the morning, she immediately waves at him, saying that they meet again, and asks if he remembers her. Our boy freezes on the spot. His imaginary friend advises him to just stay calm and talk naturally. Jin Yong then decides to treat her just like the stone girls. Meanwhile, a girl asks her friend on what's going on, so she reveals that yesterday this guy told her she was really pretty. Her friend exclaims in surprise that it's wild. The girl admits that she was shocked when it happened. Then with pure sass, the girl asks, straight to his face, if she's pretty again today. Our boy becomes speechless, and her friend laughs, asking if she's crazy, and questions what Sunwoo is doing. However, she just laughs at him. Without a second thought, our boy ran off, startling the girls. Praising the tactical retreat, the imaginary Jimbro warns that if he had stayed there, the humiliation would have been way too heavy. Hurrying down the hall, the boy is absolutely certain that her little laugh was all about making fun of him. He then forbids himself from thinking the girl might actually be interested in him. Anyway, the boy swears he will never ever cross this girl for the rest of his life. However, fate loves to mess with our MC, and his perfect escape plan sinks on the spot. Standing out ridiculously in the middle of the crowded courtyard, the hot chick shines while all the other female students look like concrete blocks. Sunwoo then waved at him with a big smile when she spotted him. However, he quickly walked the other way. Later in the hallway, when she waved at him, he ignored and walked past quickly. And the entire day he was avoiding her approach. Getting visibly annoyed by being ghosted so much, the girl doesn't get what this weirdo's deal is, always running away from her. The scene now shifts to later. After the school ends, Jin Yong walked out. Taking a deep breath, he celebrates surviving today without falling into the woman's clutches. Tired of all the running, the MC decides to go home and come up with a new plan. With a sigh, his mind tries to understand how everything got to this point. Then out of nowhere, the girl appears behind him, and in a rowdy tone, she says, "Hey." Startled, our boy jumps away while the girl asks whether that startled him. Jin Young starts to panic, wondering why they keep running into each other, and that he needs to avoid her as much as possible until he figures out a plan. Straight to the point, the girl immediately asks, "Are you going to run away again?" "Seriously, I say hi, and you keep ignoring me. You avoid my gaze when we make eye contact, and you run away the moment you see me. Did I do something wrong to you? You're really strange." Jin Yong realizes that another misunderstanding has been created, and he needs to quickly think of something to say. Nervous down to his soul, our boy stutters as he tries to give her the reason. He remembered that she stood out among the others. So in a blind impulse, the crazy guy blurts out that all girls look like rocks, except for her. This shocks her, and Bro realizes what he just said. At that very moment, his imaginary friend becomes aware of the colossal screw-up that just happened. The girl glanced at his trembling hand and noticed that he's hella nervous. She stood there silent for a moment, and then cracks a giant smile as she processes the accidental pickup line. Curious about him, she asks his name, and he says that it's Park Jin Yong. Then getting real close, the girl repeats the MC's name and says she has a little secret to tell him. Right in the guy's ear, she declares that what he said before was pure flirting. Our boy becomes paralyzed. He remembers the advice his imaginary friend Jason gave him when he was little. First, treat women like stones. That part failed. The second, don't get your hopes up. He failed that also, as his heart is thumping. She waved at him, telling him to make sure to say hi next time. Later at his apartment, he starts to get delusions about marrying her, making babies, and the child growing up, and leaves them behind with hatred. And finally, they both grow old, and he takes his last breath beside her. Then his imaginary friend sends a good smack to wake the boy up to reality. Hoping to justify himself, our boy mumbles that it's been over 5 years since he's seen a girl's face up close, so it's natural to lose his mind. Then he says that the plan to keep avoiding her won't work anymore, and asks Jason on what to do now. Jason then wisely says, the ultimate goal is always the most important thing in these situations. Since you started viewing women as stones, you've stopped feeling anything when you see them. That's why you were able to maintain your composure, and you stopped getting your heart broken by girls. But then a girl appeared who didn't look like a stone, and that's where the side effect of your stone strategy kicked in. You had absolutely no immunity to a real girl's face. It was the perfect storm for your inner loser to come out. Hearing this, Jin Yong protests that calling him a loser is a bit much, but he agrees to Jason's explanation, that if things keep going like this, the past will just repeat itself. Jason then reveals that there is a way. He just needs to keep his cool in front of her. The scene now shifts to the next day. At school, Sunwoo becomes awkward as Jin Yong is glaring at her like a weirdo. Her friend excitedly comments that Jin Yong is staring at her, but Sunwoo remarks that he's glaring. Meanwhile, Jin Yong asks Jason on what this plan is called. Jason reveals that it's desensitization strategy. He needs to keep looking at her face until he gets used to it. But he notices the crazy look is freaking out the school. So to save the plan for good, he suggests at least a little smile to break the tense mood. Trying his best, the boy forces a sinister smile onto his face. Genuinely scared, Sunwoo freezes on the spot at that bizarre expression aimed at her. However, her classmate casually points out that Jin Yong just smiled at Sunwoo. Sunwoo asks her friend whether he really thinks that they can't see him staring. Her friend replies that he does, and that's why he's looking so blatantly. Meanwhile, our boy thinks that she shouldn't be able to see him from this distance, and he wonders whether he should watch his expressions. Folks, since he can't see far without glasses, I assume that he thinks that normal people also can't see properly. Anyway, moving on. Jason tells him that he's making the ladies uncomfortable, so he suggests heading back before people get the wrong idea. Then as he leaves, Sunwoo calls out to her friend, Soo-kyung, and asks whether she knows who he is. She affirms, revealing that he's popular with the girls. Sunwoo is surprised, and Soo-kyung explains, saying, a few girls tried to talk to him, but apparently he has zero interest in girls. He doesn't care about dating and just minds his own business. He's basically the cool type. I guess that kind of vibe actually works on girls. Then she asks Sunwoo on why she's asking, and whether she's interested in him because he was staring. Sunwoo is caught off guard and denies the allegations. She then recalls the moment they shared yesterday, and she, with a sly smirk, reveals that there's something a bit bothersome about him. Later in the classroom, Jin Yong says to Jason that the more he thinks about it, the more this strategy sucks. Jason questions the reason, and Jin Yong replies that the point is to get used to her face and stay calm, but for that to work, he has to follow her around and stare. That's so freaking stalkerish. He'll just look even weirder. Jason, in a calm, serious tone, tells him to choose being a loser or a stalker. Our boy gets pissed by this remark. He then suggests that looking at her photos would be better than just staring in person, so now he needs to find her Instagram. Jason gives a thumbs up for this new plan, and tells him to go ahead and asks her. Our boy asks whether he should do it in person. Jason asks what else he can do, and that creeping on her Insta from the shadows is even more of a loser move. Later, the scene shifted to the hallway. Nearly fainting in the middle of the hall, he blocks Sunwoo's path, casually asking for her Instagram. Surprised by the direct approach, the girl with a sly expression says, "Sure, why not? Open the app. I'll type it in for you." Jin Yong is surprised that it's so easy. Sunwoo then takes his phone and checks his profile. She then becomes confused. He has 0 posts and followers. She asks him whether he just created it freshly. He nervously admits it and asks why. He inwardly says that he doesn't usually use social media, so he rushed it, and wonders is there a problem. Sunwoo bursts into laughter, and he's confused by this. She then says, "So that means I'm the very first person you looked for after making it?" Jin Yong processes her words for a moment. Then it hits him. She finds his reaction hilarious. Jin Yong had been too focused on his goal and acted before thinking. He asks his imaginary friend on what to do, but Jason just looks away, knowing that our boy screwed up big time. Jin Yong becomes super flustered and breaks his cool composure, saying that she's the first person he ran into after making it, so he couldn't help it. Meanwhile, he realizes that his inner loser is coming out. Faced with this comical situation, the girl just flashes a radiant smile and agrees to it. Then she holds up his phone and slyly asks, isn't he curious about her number? He becomes a flustered mess, and she lightly punched him, revealing that she was just kidding, and that his reactions are so funny. She then hands him his phone back, saying that she'll follow him, and tells him to make sure to like her post. Then as she walked off, he was lost in thought, thinking about the romance film he already planned in his mind. Jason then interrupts, telling him to stop playing that film, and our boy snaps out of it. Later, the scene shifted to Sunwoo's apartment unit. She was on the bed, using her phone. She laughs at a weird post, and we see that Jin Yong had posted a creepy selfie. Sunwoo thinks that his taste in photos is terrible. Meanwhile, at his apartment unit, he's sleeping happily. His phone gets a notification, and we see that Sunwoo had liked his post. Arriving at school, Soo Kyung freaks out when she discovers that Jin Yong had asked for her friend's Instagram. Confirming the story, Sunwoo brags that the guy created the account just so he could follow her. Soo Kyung tells her that he definitely likes her. Full of curiosity, Sunwoo changes the subject and asks something very specific. She asks whether it's true that Jin Yong is usually not interested in girls. Soo Kyung affirms, saying that she's the only one he's ever acted like this with. Just then, they notice him passing by their classroom. Soo Kyung suggests testing the theory right there in front of everyone, and Sunwoo questions the method. Walking calmly down the hall, our MC hears a noise and stops suddenly. Faking a super dramatic fall, Soo Kyung throws herself on the floor, surrounded by a delicate atmosphere. She somberly mumbles to Jin Yong that she's badly hurt, and waits for her Prince Charming to help. Cold as a stone, our boy stares at the fallen girl with the most neutral expression. In his eyes, she just looks like a rock. He simply pulls her up by the hoodie and leaves like a Chad, completely ignoring her. Soo Kyung starts to tremble, and seeing this, Sunwoo bursts into laughter, remarking that he yanked her up like he was pulling a radish. Sunwoo comments that her theory was right, and Soo Kyung stood there in disbelief at the violation and calls him a son of a bitch. After school finished, Jason asks our boy on whether he gotten used to that girl's face yet. He replies, no, and that he's keeping an eye on her for now. We then see him blush, and as he stares at her pictures, he thinks that every time he sees her, it's like a brand new shock. Jason then tells him that he has a long way to go, and he should first find the fundamental reason. The reason why she's the only one who doesn't look like a stone. Just then, Jin Yong noticed something. Sunwoo was standing in there, deep in thought, muttering that this is bad. Then she noticed Jin Yong, and he starts to panic as she greets him. He grits his teeth, trying to compose himself, and asks why she's standing here. She reveals that she doesn't have money to take a bus home. He asks where she lives, and she says that it's Samo Village Apartments. He becomes confused, pointing out that she can walk since it's close by. But she says that it's not simple, so he asks the reason. She becomes hesitant on revealing her secret. Then she looks away and shyly reveals that she has chronic anemia. Desperate, the MC pulls out his wallet and offers all the money he has for her to take the bus and disappear. Slapping his hand away, the girl refuses the cash, saying that she can't take advantage of him. Then she demands the guy to walk her home. Taking the lead, the girl starts walking, while guilt-tripping him by saying that he won't let a weak girl walk alone. Shocked by her audacity, the boy could barely process that he was just roped into a disguised date. Soon the sun begins to set. As they walk together, Sunwoo talks non-stop, chattering about whatever comes to mind. Extremely nervous, our boy doesn't absorb a single word of what she's saying. Sunwoo questions whether he's listening, and he inwardly says, "This is so sudden. I never thought we'd end up walking together like this. I'm extremely uncomfortable right now." He remembers his horrible past. A long time ago, something like this happened. There was a girl he used to walk with every day because they lived in the same direction. Naturally, he started to develop feelings for her. While they were walking, a bunch of kids exclaim in surprise that Jin Yong is walking with Kim Min-ji. They ask if they are dating, but the girl hastily denies the allegations and humiliates Jin Yong by saying, who would ever date a guy like him? After that day, she never walked home with him again, and their relationship ended before he could even confess. Anyways, that's why this situation is uncomfortable for our boy. He just wants this to be over quickly. Since Sunwoo usually takes the bus, he thinks that this won't happen again. Just then he hears her groaning, and he sees her on the ground, crying out his name in exhaustion. He worriedly asks what's wrong, and whether she tripped or something. She cries that this stupid uphill road worsened her chronic anemia. She held out her hand asking for help, and he without hesitation took her hand. She tells him to pull her up slowly, and he does so. Once on her feet, she thanks him, and exhaustedly says that she's feeling dizzy. Meanwhile, our boy is flustered that he held hands with his hot chick. She stares at his behavior and realizes something important. Back then, when Soo Kyung needed help, he just pulled her up roughly. She laughs, pointing out that for Soo Kyung, he yanked her like a radish. But for her, it was totally different. He becomes startled, asking what she's talking about, And who even is Soo-kyung? She realizes that it's true, that he only has eyes for her since he doesn't even know the other girls' names. Then she bids him goodbye, stating that they already arrived. She happily walks off, waving from a distance, and thanks him for walking her home. He waves back at her dryly and feels relieved that it's finally over. This situation had been so uncomfortable for him. Anyway, he starts walking to the opposite direction, thinking that it's a good thing that this won't happen tomorrow. He hopes she has bus fare tomorrow, and that she treats that chronic anemia or whatever. That way his happiness circuits will stop firing. Then as the two part ways, Sunwoo remembered something important. She turns to him saying that she almost forgot. He becomes startled as she calls out his name suddenly. As he turns, she reveals that it's going to be a while until she got her allowance. So she's counting on him again tomorrow. Jin Young is stunned at the sight of this hot chick as she's right next to him, sweating and panting for air. Jin Young inwardly says to himself that it's uncomfortable and that he wants to avoid her. However, Jason questions the look on his face. It appears Jin Young is excited that she'll be walking with him for a while. Then his expression changes as he sees Sunwoo on the ground again, wailing in exhaustion. He goes to help her again, telling her to not run next time. Later, the scene shifts to the next day. At school, Sunwoo noticed her friend practicing low kicks, and she asked the reason. Soo-kyung revealed that she's going to beat the shit out of Park Jin-young. Anyway, before her training arc, the scene shifted to yesterday evening. Jason picks things off by bringing up the conversation on why Sunwoo is the only one who doesn't look like a stone to him. Jin-young questions why he took off his shirt, and Jason replies that he's hot. Anyway, Jason guessed the reason on why Sunwoo is the only one who doesn't look like a stone to him. But of course, we don't get to know what he just said, so we gotta wait for the story to progress. Jason's guess had made Jin-young stunned. He asks if that is the only reason. Jason says that he can't think of anything else. Then they decide to talk more later at school. As Jin-young left his room, his father calls out to him, and the look on his face is the typical Asian parents who are disappointed with their son. Jin-young bows and says good morning. His disappointed father asks whether he ate, and Jin-young replies that he was going to head out without eating, since he's not really hungry. His father reveals that his mom made some kimchi stew. Jin-young responds that he'll eat some when he got back later. Then the father walks off, telling him to eat properly. After that tense encounter, Jin-young decides to head to school. It appears that this guy has some family issue. Later, the scene shifted to the school. He asks Jason whether from now on he's destined to be dragged around by Sunwoo. Jason replies that it can't be helped. Jin-young strongly hopes that his theory is wrong. Just then, a woman approached him and firmly called out his name. As he looked back, it's Soo-kyung. But of course, our boy doesn't recognize any woman other than Sunwoo. Soo-kyung nonchalantly reveals that she's going to hit him. Bro is flabbergasted by this crazy woman's declaration. He asks why, and she reveals that she stayed up all night practicing her low kicks, just so that she could hurt him. Jin-young questions who even is she. She feels hurt, saying, seriously, I have never been humiliated like that before. Anyway, I'm not letting it slide. I'll go easy on you and settle for 3 low kicks. Get ready. Jin-young in confusion asks why should he, but then she goes for a kick while shouting, shut up, you damn 4 eyes. Jin-young barely dodged it and runs off, screaming out on what the hell is happening. Soo-kyung reveals that she's actually a pretty fast runner, and unlike Sunwoo, she's not anemic. Jin-young looks scared as this rock-like woman charged at him. He grits his teeth and desperately runs, thinking that a boulder is rolling towards him. Just then she caught up, and as she goes to kick, Sunwoo appears out the hallway, asking why it's so loud. Soo-kyung ends up kicking her leg instead, and Sunwoo yelps in severe pain. Soo-kyung freezes and exclaims, oh my god. Sunwoo lays on the ground with torn ankle ligaments. Jin-young shouts her name in worry and goes to help, but his sandal slips and he ends up falling face first. His nasal bone became fractured, and Soo-kyung stood there as 2 bodies lay before her. She's hella anxious as she's in serious trouble, and she apologizes weakly. Later in the infirmary, we see Sunwoo and Jin-young laying on separate beds. Sunwoo breaks the silence by saying that Soo-kyung has always been a bit weird. He replies that it's fine, and he inwardly says that he ended up alone with Sunwoo again. He calls out to his imaginary friend, and Jason drinks tea elegantly while saying, I hope your inner loser doesn't awaken. Jin-young questions what he's doing, and he reveals that it's tea time. Anyway, Jin-young hopes he doesn't say something stupid. Sunwoo remains thoughtful and then turns to his side, asking what's for lunch today. He replies that it's fried croaker, and she exclaims that it's great. She then asks whether he usually eats breakfast before school. He replies that he usually skips it. She asks why, and that he must be hungry. He responds saying, "My dad is always there in the morning, and it's a bit awkward being around him, so I just leave early." Hearing this, she replies that he should try to get along with his father. He weakly chuckles that it's easier said than done. Then, as he stares at her, he remembers the first thing he said to Sunwoo, that she's really pretty. At first, he thought he just blurted it out, because it had been so long since he'd seen a girl's face. But looking at her now, she really is just gorgeous. Seeing him stare, Sunwoo cheekily says, "Hey, what are you staring at? Am I that pretty?" Our boy becomes flustered, frantically denying the allegations. Sunwoo laughs at his reaction and apologizes, revealing she was just joking. Jin-young wonders whether she was teasing him. Sunwoo then sits up, saying that it's fun to tease him. He shyly asks what she means by that, and she replies that it's exactly what she said. He gets flustered so easily if she pushes him a little. And when he's flustered, he says the weirdest things. Hearing this, he apologizes. Sunwoo laughs, telling him not to be sorry, and that he's just cute. Jin-young becomes embarrassed by this remark. He then remembers Jason's guess on why he can only see Sunwoo. Jason had guessed that Jin-young had fallen for Sunwoo at first sight. Now, Jason confesses that he can't think of any other theory. The two then chat with each other. And after things settled down, Jin-young restrained Soo-kyung. She's hella anxious and asks for a second, but Sunwoo reveals that it's time for some true education and that she should learn to take responsibility for her own actions. Soo-kyung pleads, asking her to let go, but Sunwoo gets into a stance and goes to kick Soo-kyung. But Soo-kyung squealed in panic, and as a result, Jin-young takes the full blow from the kick. His vision becomes dark, and Sunwoo in confusion replies, "What? Love at first sight? You fell for me?" Sunwoo stood there and she coldly says, "I was just a little nice to you, and now you're running wild with fantasies. Pathetic loser." Jin-young then jolts up awake. A voice then asks whether he had a bad dream or something. It was none other than Jason. He points out that his breathing is hard. After some time, Jin-young had explained the dream to him, a dream where Sunwoo looks down on him. Jason asks whether his trauma with woman flared up again. He hesitantly affirms, saying that he had been having the same dream a lot lately. Jason asks when it all began, and Jin-young reveals that it's from the day the theory of him falling in love at first sight came up. Hearing this, Jason reveals that it's unrequited love, and that Jin-young is afraid. He then gives an advice: know your enemy and yourself. It will make you undefeatable. Later, as he walks through the hallway, he asks whether what Jason is saying is that he should learn about Sunwoo. Jason affirms. Jin-young realizes that he doesn't really know much about her, and that this strategy sounds solid. He then reached Class 5, wondering this might be Sunwoo's class. Then as he entered, he feels nervous. He looks around, not seeing her anywhere in sight. He wonders whether she went to the bathroom. Just then, a voice calls out to him, saying that it's his seat. We are now introduced to this fatty named Gyu-min. He's 18 years old. Jin-young is caught off guard by his attitude, and he moves away apologizing. Meanwhile, Jason doesn't like this guy, and wants to hit him. Jin-young then asks whether he had seen Sunwoo. Gyu-min glares at him while saying, "Yeah, sometimes there's guys like you, rookies who fall head over heels for a girl like her." Hearing this, Jin-young is annoyed on why he's talking like that. Jason barely holds himself back. Jin-young then says, "Stop talking nonsense, you fat pig. I mean, hey man, do you know where Sunwoo went?" Gyu-min crossed his arms, saying, "How would I know? I don't talk to girls like her." Jin-young firmly tells him not to talk bad about Sunwoo, but Gyu-min keeps talking trash. Jin-young then removed his jacket and ordered him to stand up. He asks why, and Jin-young reveals that he got something for him. Gyu-min adjusts his glasses and stands up, saying that this is such a pain. Then Jin-young used his jacket as a whip and slashed him left to right, making him scream like a pig. Just then, Sunwoo entered the class while saying, "What the? Sounds like someone's butchering a pig in the classroom." Then she noticed Jin-young, and he calls out to her, revealing that he's beating this pig because he was calling her a trash girl. Sunwoo cheekily says, "You can keep going if you want. He's always like that." Jin Yong then asks what's his problem, and the poor dude becomes silent. Sunwoo winks, revealing that he's been like this since he was little, and that they are childhood friends. Later the scene shifts to outside. Jin Yong and Gyu-min are seated on a bench. Jin Yong apologizes for hitting him, and Gyu-min shrugs it off, saying it didn't hurt. Jin Yong asks about whether he actually knows Sunwoo since they were kids. He reveals that they knew each other when they were 3 years old. Jin Yong realizes that this is his chance to use Jason's strategy to learn more about Sunwoo. But Gyu-min directly says, if you're after Jung Sunwoo, you should just give up. I don't know if you realize it, but she's insanely popular. There are tons of guys chasing her. But the number of successes is 0. Hearing this, Jin Yong inwardly says, well, I figured she was popular. She's got over 2,000 followers on Instagram. He then says to him, what if she doesn't like any of those guys? Isn't that possible? Everyone has their own type. Gyu-min replies, of course, that's possible. But that's not why I'm telling you to give up. I have known Sunwoo since we were kids, and we always ended up going to the same schools. So we naturally spent a lot of time together. But around middle school, things seemed off. As usual, he had called her a trash girl and asked what she's doing. He had asked her to buy him some bread if she got nothing to do. But then he noticed something unusual. Her expression seemed off as she greeted him. She was smiling like usual, but she didn't feel like the Sunwoo he knew. He can't explain what that feeling was, and that feeling hasn't gone away since. Anyways, Gyu-min concludes that something's been off about her ever since that day, so that's why he's telling him to give up. Later, Jin Yong thinks about Gyu-min's words, and as he walks through the hallway together, he thinks that he never felt anything like that from her. Honestly, Jin Yong could probably just ignore what Gyu-min said. After all, it's just that pig's personal opinion. Just then he stops as a voice calls out in surprise. Sunwoo questions whether they are already close enough to hang out together. She asks what they were up to, and Jin Yong becomes hesitant, knowing that he shouldn't tell her they were talking about her, and that he should make up a good excuse. But Gyu-min scowled, saying, we were just talking crap about you behind your back, trash girl. Jin Yong becomes shocked that this fat pig is causing trouble for him. Sunwoo is hurt, asking whether he talked behind her back. He denies it, but Soo-kyung exclaims that she knew Park Jin-young is total trash. Gyu-min says that it was some serious shade about Sunwoo's ugliness. Jin-young couldn't take this crap anymore and whips this pig again. Seeing them goof around, Sunwoo asks her friend on what's going on, and Soo-kyung suggests to leave those idiots alone. Sunwoo smiled at this situation, and the scene shifted to later. As school ended, Jin Yong was about to take the bus while telling Jason that they have a big problem. They didn't find much about Sunwoo, and it looks like misunderstandings are only piling up. Jason states that it's all because of that pig. He kept spouting nonsense about Sunwoo feeling off, or whatever. He needs to be slaughtered immediately. Just then, Sunwoo called out to him, asking whether he had fun gossiping about her. He becomes startled and realizes that Sunwoo could be so direct sometimes. He then goes to say that he wasn't talking behind her back, and she chuckles, saying she knows that. She playfully hits him, saying, Gyu-min was probably just messing around anyway. That's just how he is. There's no way you would do that. Then more importantly, she asks Jin Yong to walk her home. He asks why and whether she ran out of bus fare again today. She affirms, saying that now she's already annoyed just thinking about walking up this hill. Jin Yong feels that this is all complicated. Jason points out that he didn't speak ill of her, but it's true that he talked about her behind her back. Jin Yong decides that he should probably hide the fact that they were talking about her for now. Then she gets his attention, saying she really hates uphill roads. He asks whether walking is really such a struggle. She replies, of course it is. The typical symptoms of chronic anemia are weakness and fatigue. Especially when I climb stairs or an uphill road, I get really out of breath and my head hurts. I can even get out of breath just by standing still. Jin Yong comments that she really has it hard. Then she points to her back and tells him to give her a boost. He hesitates, but she urges him to push already and asks whether he doesn't want to go home. Then with his trembling hands, he began pushing her uphill. She remarks that it's definitely easier to climb now. She then giggles and reveals that it tickles a bit. Jin Yong is surprised, and she cheekily reveals that her back is sensitive. Hearing this, Jin Yong blushes. Jokes like this are troublesome for him. He wonders what if they got a little closer and became more comfortable with each other than they are now. He wonders whether a day would come where he can walk this path with Sun Woo on his back like this. Jason cheers him, and Jin Young thinks that this much of wishful thinking is fine, because it's not like naming their grandchildren. He then unintentionally pushes her even harder, while thinking that he's free to imagine. Just then, he hears Sun Woo crying out his name, saying that she said to push slower, but now she feels like she's going to die from being so out of breath. He quickly lets go of her and apologizes, saying he spaced out. She pants heavily, trying to catch her breath. Just then, he noticed something. The scenery looked really pretty from here. It feels good to have such an open view. He didn't know she lived near a place like this. Then he hears her exclaim in surprise. She didn't know there was a place like this near her house. Jin Young asks whether it's her first time seeing it too. She affirms, saying, "It's not a height that a patient with chronic anemia would climb. Besides, I'm dying of exhaustion because of you, and I still have to walk all the way back home. Do you want to die?" Jin Young quickly apologizes. Then she looked at the scenery and says that since he showed her a place like this, she'll let it slide just for today. Jin Young stares at her as she comments that it's pretty. He starts to sweat while inwardly saying that feeling of incongruity that Gyu-min said he felt from Sun Woo. I don't really know what that feeling is, but if not being able to see anything but Sun Woo right now is a sense of incongruity, then maybe this is it. He then calls out her name and reveals that it was true. He and Gyu-min talked behind her back. She's left shocked by the sudden confession, asking whether he really gossiped about her. He replies, "No, I wasn't talking crap about you. It's just that I found out that Gyu-min was your childhood friend, so I wanted to know more about you." Sun Woo is taken back by this, and he continues saying, "Because of that, it ended up looking like we were talking behind your back. But I wasn't talking crap. I just didn't want you to misunderstand." Sun Woo looks a bit flustered and replies, "I see. Why are you worrying about something like that? I already forgot about it." Hearing this, Jin Young asks if it's true, and she affirms. Then she parts ways, saying she'll head back downhill alone. She waves, saying that it was a bit of a detour, but she thanks for walking her home. Jin Young remains in a dilemma. Jason notes that her reaction is ambiguous. He wonders whether there was a need to be so honest. He understands that Jin Young wanted to be honest with her, but there are times when it's better to just stay quiet and move on. Now he can't help but wonder what she'll actually think. Meanwhile, as she's walking down, she thinks about Jin Young's confession, that he wanted to know more about her. She smiles that Jin Young can be so direct sometimes. Then, as she continues walking, she falls down, already feeling out of breath. The scene shifted to the next day. At school, Jason is surprised that Jin Young is going to play soccer after a long time. He advises him to sweat it out and become even more of a man. Just then, Jin Young noticed that his shoelace is undone. He bends down to tie it, but right then a woman scowled, asking who just suddenly stops in the middle of walking like that. This hot chick named Jo Hangjeol calls out his name, saying that he almost got hurt, and she asks whether he's trying to injure himself. He looked up at her in confusion, and she pushed his head down, ordering him not to look at her and keep his head down. He asks the reason, and she replies, "When you look from below, people look ugly. Girls really hate being seen from that angle. Besides, it's embarrassing, you brat. Next time, don't just stop suddenly while walking." Jin Young then turns towards her as she walks off. In his eyes, she just looked like a stone, so he doesn't really care. But if he said that to her, he'd be dead. Then as he walked through the hallway, he's lost in thought. Because of the fear of rejection, he started seeing all girls as stones. On top of that, to make sure he'd never be rejected again, he felt the need to improve himself. And natural, he began focusing on self-development, like studying and working out. And as a result, he became a perfect human. As he struck the ball, it went into the goalpost with immense speed, and Gyu-min couldn't even prevent it. The students praise Jin Young, glad that he's in their class. Gyu-min becomes jealous that he's stealing all the glory. Meanwhile, Soo-kyung notes that the guys are playing soccer, and that the classroom is going to stink like sweat later. Sun Woo licked her lollipop while remarking that Jin Young's there too. Then their attention shifts to the girls, as they are ogling at Jin Young. They cheer that he's so cool, and that he really stands out. Sun Woo listens to their conversation, as they talk that Jin Young is usually quiet, but when he plays sports like that, it's so attractive. He doesn't seem interested in girls, but that's part of his charm. He's got that cool, sexy vibe. Hearing all this, Soo-kyung scoffs, saying, "Seriously, Listen to those idiots drooling. Why is Park Jin-young so popular anyway? Cool and sexy feels like a stretch, doesn't it? Sunwoo thinks about it, and as she recalls his timid behavior towards her, she chuckled and agreed with Soo-kyung. Anyways, after the game ended, the students celebrate, stating that they won due to Jin-young. Jin-young feels satisfied and says that they did great. He then noticed that he's drenched in sweat, so he decides to wash up at the tap before heading back. Then, as he opens the tap and washed his face, a student remarked that it was an impressive shot. It was Gyu-min. He confesses that he didn't think there was someone whose shot he couldn't block. Jin-young tells him that he also did well as a goalkeeper today. But Gyu-min states that this is infuriating. He asks whether he knows about the dark side of soccer. Jin-young simply replies that he doesn't and is not interested. But Gyu-min continues saying, "When you lose, it's always the goalkeeper's fault. Even if I block 10 shots, if I miss one, it's all on me. That's why I don't like you." Hearing this, Jin-young asks the reason, and Gyu-min reveals that it's because he couldn't block his shot. And that's enough for a reason. Jason becomes irritated that this pig is at it again. Just then, Gyu-min blocks the tap and sprays water towards Jin-young, saying that it's a gift. Jin-young is caught off guard, yelling that it's cold. He then sprays water towards Gyu-min, calling him a pig and asking whether he's insane. The water fight turns intense, and as Sunwoo and Soo-kyung were just passing by, they heard Gyu-min and Jin-young shouting at each other. Soo-kyung asks, "Isn't it Gyu-min and Jin-young?" But Sunwoo replies that she can't hear them properly, so they need to get close to see who it is. Soo-kyung asks whether she wants to go check what weird thing they're doing this time, and Sunwoo agrees to it. Meanwhile, the two boys have an intense standoff. Jin-young shouts that this feels gross and that he's soaked because of him. Gyu-min removes his shirt while telling him to just take it off and wring it out, and why make such a big deal? Jin-young then also removed his shirt while declaring that he will definitely beat him up after school. Just then, the girls approach them, asking what they are doing and why aren't they heading in. Jin-young is stunned, and as his toned abs are on full display, the girls are visibly impressed. Then their gaze shifted to Gyu-min. He stood there with unwavering confidence, his massive frame fully on display. The girls instantly cringed at the sight, and the video cut off abruptly, as even the narrator needs a moment to recover from what he had just witnessed.